Hi everyone, welcome back to Earl Grey Books. I'm Ellie and today I am doing the School Days book tag. This was originally created by Victoria from What Victoria Read, and I was tagged by Mel from a book fiend named Mel. So this tag is kind of separated into two sections. The first section is looking at times of the day, which you answer all the questions for, and then the second is subjects, which you can pick and choose which prompts you'd like to answer. First one, First Bell. Tell us about the book that first got you into reading. I've talked about this many times on my channel and elsewhere, but it is the series of unfortunate events, or a series of unfortunate events series. Yes, okay. By Lemony Snicket. This is book 13, The End. It was just the easiest one for me to pick. And yes, this was the series that really made me love reading, and I read all 13 books as a kid. Probably multiple times, I don't really remember. But I do remember we would always go to the shops on release day and buy it so that I could read it that night, and then I'd have to wait for the next one. So used to love this, still love this, will always have a special place in my heart. Break time. Which book have you most recently had to take a break from or DNF? The only book I've DNF this year so far is The Blind Assassin by Margaret Atwood. I've talked a little bit about this one recently. I DNF'd it in January. Basically, I just thought it was really boring, and I really struggled with it. So I just DNF'd it because it's a long book and I just didn't have the time. Lunchtime. Tell us about your favorite book that features food. I really struggled with this one, so I kind of took this answer from Helen from Helen's Bookhaven, because she mentioned it in her video and I was like, oh, I've read that one. Yes, that one I know. So where did I put it? Here it is. It is With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. The main character in this one is a chef. She does a food class at school and cooks a lot at home as well, and it's a really beautiful book and I highly recommend it. Final Bell. Which book have you finished? Which book have you most recently finished reading? For that one, it is Othello by William Shakespeare. This was a reread. I'm studying this in class today, actually, when you're seeing this video. So I had to read it this weekend, and this is not my favourite of his by a long shot. So I read it though. I reread it. Yay! Look at me being prepared for class. Okay, homework. What was the last non-fiction book that you read and enjoyed? I love non-fiction, but the one that I most recently read was Fire Country by Victor Stephenson. This is a book that looks at Indigenous fire management, primarily here in Australia, though he did travel and teach other First Nations people their practices and learnt things from them as well. It also has a more sort of personal side where it kind of looks at his relationship with some of the elders in his community and how he learnt all of this stuff from them. It's a really nice book. And finally, for this section is Staff Room. Tell us about a book that you go to when you need to take a break. I'm going for genre here because I don't have a particular book that I go for, but I do have two genres that I will go to if I need a break. Which of course, historical romance is a big one. If you've been around here, you probably know that I read quite a bit of historical romance and that I generally enjoy it. There's a few exceptions here and there, but most of the time. So that one, and also middle grade fantasy. There's something about middle grade fantasy that I really like, that I don't think I enjoy YA fantasy or adult fantasy in the same way. There are a couple that I really love and I'm really interested in picking them up, but middle grade fantasy just has something different from the other age ranges, and I just really like it, and it makes me really happy most of the time. Now we go into subjects. So for this one you basically just pick which ones you want to answer. I'm only doing 3 because I didn't want this to be a super long video, and here we are. And I just realised that I didn't pick up 2 of the books I was meant to talk about. So, bear with me, let me go grab them. Okay, so the first subject I picked was English, which is to tell us about one book you studied at school and recommend one book that you would like to add to the curriculum. I literally only own one book that I studied back in high school. I own some of the ones that I studied in uni, but for high school, I only own one of them, which probably tells you how I felt about most of the reading that we did in high school. And that is Stasiland by Anna Funder. Again, I've talked about this one quite a few times on my channel. I consider it to be one of the best things I've read. And I think this was really the book that made me look at nonfiction and go, maybe I will try that. So yeah, really love this one. And then as for one that I would add to the curriculum, I kind of struggled with this because I was like, there are so many and a lot of amazing ones that I'd like, this needs to be read by people, but it's maybe not high school age kids, maybe uni. But this one, I went with Song Sparrows by the Gawug group of women. This is looking at First Nations women and their connection to country through songlines. So this is, it has songlines in it. It has it in the original Indigenous language that these particular women speak, and then it's also translated into English, and then it also has chapters talking about the particular verse that they've just shared, what it means to them, what it means to their particular families and communities, and also tells the story of those communities and their families, and it's a really beautiful book. And I'm not sure, it's been a long time since I was in high school, but I know that we didn't really look at that much history or literature of First Nations people. We kind of did a very basic very basic look. I think the only thing we really read was, we didn't even read, we watched the movie of Rabbit Proof Fence. And I think there's just a lot that is left out and that I've had to go and learn for myself, and a lot of stuff that I don't know and I haven't learned yet. And I just think that we should be celebrating and looking back at and focusing on First Nations people here in Australia, and I'm sure that could apply to a lot of other places in the world as well. And I just think that this is a good one, and it's a little bit left of field as well, and it's kind of a good way. I'm sure that there are recordings or something like that, maybe an audiobook where students could hear the songs as well. And I just think that would be really fun and a way to kind of garner some interest in English, because I know a lot of people hate it. Okay, so next subject I picked was PE, which I dropped in school as soon as humanly possible and never participated in any way. But this is Show Us the Biggest Book on Your TBR. So I think, I might be wrong, but I think the one I have is Middlemarch by George Eliot. This is one of those beautiful penguin cloth bound editions. This is, I think, 800 and something. Yeah, about 850. So maybe it's not the biggest book. You know, I think there's some like fantasies that are bigger, but I think this is the biggest one on my shelf. I couldn't think of anything else. And then the last one is Art, because I had to. This is Short Story Books You Think Have the Best Covers. Tried to go kind of, again, a little bit left of field and not pick anything that I have spent lots of time talking about. So, I have 3 here. Let's start with this one. This is Washington Black by Essie Udgan. This, I think, is just stunning. I don't know how well you can really see it, but these little bits here, these kind of like cloud wave things, are like gold foiled, and there's a couple of other like small gold foil details. I just love a gold book. There were quite a few that I was looking at that I was like, oh, that one, and then I was like, oh, it's also gold. So yeah, I just think it's stunning. I love that it's simple. It's all kind of like monochromatic, and I think it's gorgeous. Also a really great book. And then I have The Grief Keeper by Alexandra Villasente. This one is also kind of simple in that it's just got this illustration of these 2 girls. This is a female-female romance, and it's got like, you know, the black hair, and it's, I don't know, again, there's little like blue, you cannot really see that at all. There's little blue sort of like sparkly star, almost kind of cosmos sort of things in the hair, and kind of the pattern from her jacket goes up, and it's just beautiful, and there's some on the back too. I haven't read this one, but I'm like obsessed with this cover, and I have been ever since I bought it. And then finally I wanted to do one that's a little different, and that is Monster, She Wrote, The Woman Who Pioneered Horror and Speculative Fiction by Lisa Kroger and Melanie R. Anderson. This one is an illustrated cover. It's a little bit creepy. We've got like a ghost thing coming out here, and like a snake and a toad, and like a creepy possessed doll, and Frankenstein's monster, and then we've got some women here, Mary Shelley Jackson, and I think that's maybe meant to be, I think this is meant to be Toni Morrison. Yeah, I think it's Toni Morrison. Anyway, yeah, amazing book as well. I just love that this is so bright and colourful, and usually this colour green I'd be like, no thanks, but it kind of works. It also has just like a beautiful spine, and yes, thought I'd mention that one. I think it's pretty cool. So that's it for this video. I hope you're all doing super well, and I will see you guys on Wednesday. I'm not going to tag anyone in this one because I think everyone that I know has already done it, but if you haven't and you want to do it, feel free to say I tagged you if you'd like, and that's it. I'll see you all then. Bye.